Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Boss Economics World, the only show that cuts through the economic nonsense and calls out the clowns running the circus. I'm your host, the no-nonsense voice of reason, here to break down the latest economic dumpster fire and expose the geniuses, experts, who got us here. Buckle up, because today, we're diving headfirst into the European Central Bank's, ECB, latest rate cut extravaganza. Spoiler alert, it's a masterclass in how to tank an economy while pretending you're saving it. Let's roll. Oh, look, folks, the ECB is at it again, waving its magic wand and promising to fix Europe's faltering economy by slashing borrowing costs to below 2% in 2025. According to a Bloomberg survey of economists, those same folks who totally saw the 2008 financial crisis coming, the ECB is gearing up for more rate cuts, bringing the deposit rate down to a measly 1.75% by September 2025. Why? Because apparently, inflation is going to undershoot their sacred 2% target in early 2026. Oh, the horror. Quick, fire up the printing presses, because nothing screams economic stability like flooding the system with cheap money, right? But wait, there's more. These geniuses also predict the ECB will hike rates back to 2% in 2027, as if playing yo-yo with monetary policy is the secret sauce to prosperity. I mean, who needs a stable, predictable economic environment when you can just keep flipping the script every few quarters? Brilliant. Now, before we dive into the juicy details, let me set the stage for you, dear viewers. Europe's economy is already on life support, gasping for air under the weight of trade tariffs from none other than US President Donald Trump, who's apparently decided that Europe's economic misery is his personal playground. Add to that falling energy prices, a strong euro, and what Lithuania's central bank governor Gediminas Šimkus calls clear disinflationary forces, and you've got a recipe for a full-blown recession. But don't worry, folks, the ECB has a plan: cut rates, and, surprise, cut rates some more. Because nothing says, we've got this under control, like kicking the can down a road that's already crumbling. Let's start with the surface-level nonsense here. The ECB is freaking out because inflation might dip below their precious 2% target in 2026. According to the Bloomberg survey, analysts now expect inflation to average 1.7% and 1.8% in the first 2 quarters of 2026, down from a previous forecast of 1.9%. Oh no, call the economic fire department. Inflation's not high enough to erode your purchasing power at the ECB's arbitrary, optimal, rate. Better slash borrowing costs to juice up the economy, right? Here's the problem, folks, this obsession with hitting a 2% inflation target is straight-up economic voodoo. Why 2%? Why not 1.5% or 3%? The ECB acts like it's some sacred number handed down from the economic gods, but let's be real, it's completely arbitrary. And here's the kicker. While they're busy panicking about disinflation, that's economists speak for, inflation's not rising fast enough, they're completely ignoring the real issues dragging Europe's economy into the gutter. Spoiler alert, it's not a lack of cheap money. Now, let's dig a little deeper, shall we? Why is Europe's economy faltering, as the ECB so delicately puts it? Well, for starters, let's talk about the elephant in the room, US trade tariffs. President Trump has been slapping tariffs on European goods left, right, and center, and the effects are starting to bite. Just look at the data. According to the European Commission, US tariffs on European exports, including steel, aluminum, and agricultural products, have already cost European exporters over €6 billion annually since 2018. And with Trump doubling down on his America First agenda, analysts at Oxford Economics predict that these tariffs could shave off 0.3% of Eurozone GDP by 2026. That's not pocket change, folks. But here's the thing, tariffs are only part of the story. Europe's economy was already a mess before Trump started swinging his tariff hammer. Let's talk about Germany, the so-called economic powerhouse of Europe. Germany's manufacturing sector, which accounts for over 20% of its GDP, has been in a tailspin, with industrial production dropping by 4.1% year-on-year in August 2024, according to Destatis, Germany's Federal Statistics Office. Why? Because Germany's export-driven economy is getting crushed by global trade tensions, not to mention its over-reliance on a slowing Chinese market. And guess what? The ECB thinks the solution is to make borrowing cheaper, as if German factories are going to magically start churning out more cars because interest rates are 0.5% lower. Give me a break. Now, let's get to the heart of the matter, folks, the ECB's addiction to easy money. For over a decade, the ECB has been hooked on ultra-low interest rates and quantitative easing, pumping trillions of euros into the economy to stimulate growth. Remember negative interest rates? Yeah, that was a thing. Banks were literally charged for holding money at the ECB, all in the name of encouraging lending. And what did we get for it? A measly 0.9% GDP growth forecast for 2025, according to the ECB's own projections, followed by a pathetic 1.2% and 1.3% in 2026 and 2027. Wow, talk about bang for your buck. Here's the dirty little secret, folks: low interest rates don't fix structural problems. They just paper over the cracks. Need proof? Look at the Eurozone's labor productivity growth, which has been stuck at a pitiful 0.7% annually since 2010, according to Eurostat. Compare that to the US, where productivity growth has averaged 1.4% over the same period, per the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. Why the gap? Because Europe's economies are plagued by overregulation, underinvestment in innovation, and a demographic time bomb. Its working-age population is shrinking by 0.4% annually, according to the United Nations. But sure, ECB, keep slashing rates. That'll fix everything. Now, let's talk about the ECB's so-called optimistic tone on inflation. Back in March 2025, they predicted inflation would slow to 1.9% and 2% in 2026 and 2027, down from 2.3% in 2025. Sounds nice and tidy, right? But then, plot twist, in April 2025, inflation held steady at 2.2%, and core inflation, that's the stuff excluding volatile energy and food prices, jumped to 2.7%, way higher than analysts expected. Uh-oh, looks like the ECB's crystal ball might be a little foggy. What does this tell us, folks? It tells us the ECB has no clue what's going on. One minute they're panicking about disinflation, the next they're blindsided by stubborn inflation pressures. And what's their solution? You guessed it, more rate cuts. Because nothing screams, we're in control, like reacting to every data blip with a knee-jerk policy change. Meanwhile, everyday Europeans are getting crushed by rising prices. Energy bills in the EU are up 18% year-on-year as of Q3 2024, according to Eurostat, and food inflation is still hovering around 4%. But hey, at least borrowing is cheap, right? Now, to be fair, not everyone at the ECB is drinking the rate cut Kool-Aid. Executive Board member Isabel Schnabel, bless her soul, actually urged caution, arguing for a steady-hand policy and keeping rates near current levels given the elevated uncertainty. Translation: hey, maybe we should stop acting like headless chickens and actually think this through. But does anyone listen to her? Nope. Instead, we've got Lithuania's Gediminas Simkus on Bloomberg TV, practically begging for more cuts, saying another move in June 2025 is needed because the euro area economy hasn't even felt the full force of Trump's tariffs yet. Oh, and Finland's Olli Rehn is jumping on the bandwagon, saying he'd back a cut if the ECB's new projections confirm disinflation. Projections, folks. Because nothing says reliable policy like basing your decisions on forecasts that are wrong half the time. So, what's the takeaway here, folks? The ECB's rate cut circus is a textbook example of how governments and central banks screw up economies and then blame everyone else. Europe's economic woes aren't caused by a lack of cheap money, they're caused by structural failures, trade wars, and a central bank that's more interested in hitting arbitrary inflation targets than addressing real problems. And guess what? The bill for this mismanagement is going to be paid by you, the everyday worker, saver, and business owner, while the ECB's ivory tower economists pat themselves on the back for saving the economy. Here's my advice to the ECB: stop the rate cut madness, focus on structural reforms, and let the market sort itself out. And to you, dear viewers, keep your eyes wide open, because the economic circus is far from over. Until next time, this is Boss Economics World, calling out the clowns and keeping it real. See you in the comments.